Technocrat. Okay, cool. Just watch the video. He explains it here. Okay, let's watch this.
Communism, Marxism, and a whole lot more. Explained by me, azureScapegoat. There is a lot of confusion about these terms. Socialist, communist, people calling Obama socialist communist without really having any proper idea of what those things mean. And this has pretty much always been a problem with socialism and communism.
We'll do religion
It
after
even
this
says
one.
so in the preamble to the Communist Manifesto written in 1848. So I'm here to tell you what all the different terms actually mean. Most people in the Western world, especially in America, have heard of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders calls himself a socialist and talks all about Scandinavian countries like Sweden and Denmark, praising them for social welfare system which provide things like free education, healthcare and other benefits or security nets, all paid for by the government. Scandinavia is, wrongly, even by a lot of people within Scandinavia itself, I know because I live there myself, called socialist. Bernie Sanders ran against Hillary Clinton in the Democrat primaries in 2016. He lost the Democratic nomination to Clinton, who went on to run against Donald Trump. Donald Trump talks a lot about China, specifically the People's Republic of China, which calls itself socialist, with Chinese characteristics, of course. Donald Trump won the presidential election and became the 45th president of the United States of America, replacing the man who came before him, Barack Obama. Obama talked on multiple occasions about Guantanamo Bay, which is a military facility on the island of Cuba, but belonging to the nation of the USA. Cuba says that the land where the Guantanamo Bay facility is located belongs to the Cuban state, which calls itself socialist. Do you know who else called themselves socialists? The Nazis. Nazi is shorthand for Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, which translates to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP. So what does Sweden, Bernie Sanders, China, Cuba, and the Nazis have in common? Well, in practice, nothing. Sweden, not entirely unlike China, is a country with a mainly capitalistic free market system, but with some government intervention and social security paid for by the raising of taxes on those who earn more. Cuba is what many in the world would call communist, choosing not to rely on a private free market, but rather a public, planned economy where elected representatives make decisions about the economy that would otherwise be made by private business owners, like where to build new factories, what they should produce, what the wages should be, and so on. And although many in the West call Cuba communist, Cuba calls itself socialist. Yes, they are led by the Communist Party, but even they say that Cuba is socialist, not
Just like the Chinese Communist Party is, like, China is not a communist state. I wouldn't even consider China to be socialist, but they consider themselves, I guess, in a transitional socialist state currently.
communist. And Germany, when it was ruled by the Nazis, also called itself socialist. And although the government was a totalitarian one, which dictated many things about the private lives of citizens, the economy was largely still capitalistic and had a free market, minus some protectionism and sanctions or embargoes here and there. So, what exactly does socialism mean? Well, long story short, it's a pretty vague term that could mean pretty much whatever you want it to mean. The definition of socialism is a society in which the means of production, distribution, and exchange are owned by the community as a whole rather than private individuals. Of the examples that I brought up, Scandinavia, Bernie Sanders, Cuba, and the Nazis, the only one that really fits this definition is Cuba. Because the means of production, that is, factories and other workplaces, like farms, for example, the means of distribution and the means of exchange are owned by the state, that is, the community as a whole. And the state is democratic, as in run by the people that live in the nation. And so the people, indirectly through the democratic government, control the means of production, distribution, and exchange. Sweden and Norway and Denmark own some of the means of production, some of the means of distribution and exchange, but I would say over 90% of the means of production in Scandinavia are privately owned, and so the community as a whole do not control the means of production, distribution, or exchange in Scandinavia. And so Scandinavia is, for the most part, and according to most definitions of socialism, not socialistic. They are capitalistic, following an ideology called social democracy, which I will talk about in a minute. So, I've given you the definition of socialism, or more.
This is why whenever people say, like, whenever Republicans place Schrodinger's socialism, whenever they try to refer to Scandinavian countries and say, like, oh, well, you know, Sweden is socialist, or Sweden is not socialist, depending on who you're talking to. Sweden is not socialist. It's not a socialist country. It is a social democracy. Most of these European countries that we look to are social democracies. They're still capitalist. There's still plenty of private enterprise. There's free market economy, but with social safety nets and heavy government regulation and intervention.
Accurately, I've given you the definition of a socialist society.
justice.
Socialism,
You love
the
your father,
ideology,
the devil.
is trying to achieve that kind of society. It's what's called an umbrella term, encompassing multiple other terms within it that branch away further. So let's create a nice little infographic thing, right? We have socialism on the left, and then
No,
capitalism.
the USSR was not actually communist. There has never been. Okay, this has also been memeified by Americans for the most part, so it's difficult to talk about. But communism has never actually occurred. Like communism has never. There's never been a fucking true communist state in and of itself. Like, don't say fucking North Korea, man. No. Do you think there isn't a class distinction in North Korea? Yeah, I know. Everyone always says, wasn't real communism, brother. But it's true. No true Scotsman, Andy, but it's literally true. It is a final state that we have never arrived at. We just have never arrived at it. It's only something that we have tried to achieve. Communist state is a contradiction. Okay, communism has never been arrived at. We've never had a stateless, moneyless, classless society. The closest thing we've had to communism is primitive communism.
On the right. Simple enough. Under socialism, we have communism. Now, communism is an ideology that strives to establish communist society, which is stateless, moneyless, and most importantly, classless. Think Star Trek.
The economics of the future are somewhat different. You see, money doesn't exist in the 24th century.
No money? You mean you don't get paid?
The acquisition of wealth is no longer the driving force in our lives. We work to better ourselves.
Remember how people were trying to tell me Star Trek wasn't communist?
And the rest of humanity.
Now, communist society should be distinguished from the Western concept of a communist state, the latter being a socialist state ruled by a communist party. For example, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR or the Soviet Union, was ruled by the Communist Party, but the Communist Party didn't say, oh, the USSR is communist. They said the USSR is socialist. Now, under communism, we have two other ideologies, anarchism and classical Marxism. I won't talk that much about anarchism in this video, that will be for another time, but essentially the difference between Marxism and anarchism is that classical Marxism believes in a transition between capitalism and communism called socialism, whereas anarchism seeks to establish communism directly after the overthrow of capitalism and not go through a transitionary period. That said, anarchists still count as socialists. Now, classical Marxism splits even further into orthodox Marxism and revisionist Marxism.
Only from a lack of reading theory. If you ask Marxist-Leninists, they will say that that's why they call anarchists anarchides.
Orthodox Marxism is essentially a continuation of classical Marxism, but was developed after the death of Karl Marx. Karl Marx, obviously the founder of classical Marxism, left a lot of his work unfinished, and so orthodox Marxists sort of picked up the torch when Marx died and continued his work and continued expanding his theories. Revisionist Marxism, on the other hand, is an umbrella term for forms of Marxism that have changed one or more fundamental parts of Marxism.
For those of you who ask, this is where I fall. Because people always ask me, like, what are you?
Social democracy is a form of revisionist Marxism that has changed Marxism so much that it is no longer socialistic, but rather a friendly version of capitalism. This is the ideology mainly followed by Scandinavia and some other European countries like France, for example. There's also democratic socialism, which is the term so vague that it could actually be either orthodox and communist, revisionist and communist, or revisionist and not communist. The definition of democratic
I like that he does not include anarchism under democratic socialism, but there are definitely anarchists in the DSA, which probably is a reason for why there's so many issues with the DSA internally.
Socialism is an ideology which seeks to establish a society with a socialist mode of production alongside a democratic system, as opposed to the Soviet or Workers' Council system of Marxism-Leninism, which democratic socialists generally deem undemocratic. Now, some people will claim that democratic socialism means socialists who want to establish socialism through democratic means, but this is not necessarily the case. Yes, there are democratic socialists who aim to achieve their goals through elections, but there can also be revolutionary democratic socialists who reject participating in elections under capitalism because capitalist elections are undemocratic in their eyes, and they seek to establish real democracy alongside socialism through revolutionary means. Also note that democratic socialism is not the same as social democracy. Social democracy is pro-capitalism, whereas democratic socialism is anti-capitalism, at least in theory. There are some democratic socialist parties which are pretty much social democratic in theory, but just call themselves something else. Moving on. Under orthodox Marxism, we have even more tendencies like Luxemburgism, Leninism, Trotskyism, Maoism, and a whole lot more. These are actually not too different from each other, and so their differences are more complicated and take longer to explain, so I won't do that in this video, but perhaps some other time. Now then, let's recap. Socialism and capitalism are two different things. Socialism is anti-capitalistic, capitalism is anti-socialistic. All communists are socialists, but not all socialists are communists. Communists are either anarchists or Marxists, and some people have revised or changed Marxism into something barely even recognizable called social democracy, which has historical connections to socialism and socialist movements, but is not actually socialistic, even though it's often called so. Democratic socialism is different from social democracy because it's actually anti-capitalistic, which social democracy is not. Leninism, Trotskyism, Maoism...
Neoliberalism is like here, dude. That's where, for those of you who are asking where neoliberalism is, it's not on this designation. Like, this is a leftist ideology distinction, which most leftists will disagree with still. Like, you don't need a political science degree to understand this shit. You just need to be a weeb for politics, specifically leftist politics. This is why there's so much infighting on the left, though. And that's also partially why I don't really talk about like what my personal designation is, what my personal political designation is beyond saying I'm a leftist or I'm an anti-capitalist. The reason for why I do that is because all of these people fight with one another and have historically killed one another all the fucking time. Non-stop. I think that in America, though, because we are so far fucking tilted to the right in comparison to the rest of the world and in comparison to history, especially when it comes to our economic organization, I believe that all of these people, and yes, that even includes social democrats, are a part of the same fucking, a part of the same short-term goals. It's cowardly to do that. Shut the fuck up. You see now why fireflies try to kill Ellie even when zombies are around? Exactly. The funniest part about this is that no matter how much all of these fucking nerds fight amongst one another in extremely sweaty ways, most Americans believe this is also this. Even though this is literally like, this is what the norm should be right now. And we should be striving towards this. But we are not here. We're here in America. So this is your fucking ally. Unless you're literally a revolutionary Marxist, as he mentioned, and believe that like we need to magically somehow build a vanguard party. I'm sure a vanguard will come together on its own if you read hard enough, and listen to your favorite podcast hard enough, and post hard enough on Reddit. You'll build a vanguard party.
You love your father, the devil.
2 months.
Or wait for the inherent contradictions in capitalism and the way that our economy is organized, or the inherent contradiction between classes to ultimately implode our capitalist organization of the economy. I'm sure that will happen as well. And certainly what will happen as a consequence of that won't be a fucking fascist state once again, but instead will magically become the everyone will just magically read all the theory that you've been reading and get woke.
You don't love the spirit of justice. You love your father, the devil.
The problem is, a lot of people just, I don't know why, a lot of people on the internet think that like neoliberals is anywhere near the spectrum when they're like fucking far right, pro-capitalist, pro-free market, pro-third world exploitation liberals. That's it. As opposed to the Democrats magically handing their party to the leftists.
You don't love the spirit of justice. You love your father, the devil.
I always talk about how we should magically take over the Democratic Party. And you're right. I don't stress the importance of electoralism on a regular basis. So thank you for that take. I don't stress the importance of fucking voting and participating in the American democratic process on a regular basis. So you're right. I just think magically that the Democratic Party will magically concede to the left. Get you strawman MLs. Lenin and Stalin are subpar theory. Bakunin and Kropotkin are far superior.
You have attacked me and lied.
You're focusing too much on economic spectrum. Neoliberalism and social democracy are pretty close on social positions.
You don't love the spirit of justice. You love your father, the devil.
Dude, you've already exposed yourself as a fucking dumbass earlier. And you were like, these are internet Twitter threads that you fucking read your political opinions from after I talked about fucking neoliberalism and even your own number one source for political information, Wikipedia, agrees with me instead of you. Just go play Pokemon. Go Pokemon, go to the polls, brother. Neoliberalism and social democrats are aligned. Yeah, sure. Aren't you literally from some fucking European Euro shit country? What the fuck is this? Like, how does a European person get cucked into the American understanding of neoliberalism and social democracy because he watches an American streamer who is also completely unaware of these political ideologies and have learned it from fucking internet memes? Like, how do you lose sight of like your own political process and your own parties in a multi-party system that you probably come from? He's from Germany? Jesus Christ. Neoliberals are diametrically opposed to leftists. It's just the fucking truth. They are right-wing. They are just right-wing everywhere around the world. Everywhere around the world, with the exception of America, neoliberals are right-wing. Capitalism is so deeply entrenched in the U.S. that the power dynamic between the poor working class and the wealthy are almost irreparable. You don't understand Marx's cause? That's literally what will happen. No classical Marxists except the extremely online ones you interact with because you don't leave your house are actually armchair activists like you depict them. What? No classical Marxists except the extremely online ones you interact with because you don't leave your house are actually armchair activists like you depict them? Well, what? I think no matter how you interpret Marx's writings, the state's proclivity to control all of the externalities has been the reason why we arrive at the global neoliberal hell that we're in currently. Like, those inherent contradictions have almost always been fixed with short-term solutions by the welfare state. Something that I believe was something that even Marx was unable to predict, to the degree that even Marx was unable to predict. When will your Marxist phase be over, Puggo? I mean, it's not over Marx? No, of course not. All right, we're gonna do a religion poll in a second. Maybe Orthodox Marxist and an intersectionalist. I don't know. What do you think of Noam Chomsky being a social anarchist? I don't know what you mean by this. Like, he is a libertarian socialist or an anarcho-socialist or an anarcho-syndicalist, I guess. Or is he an anarcho-syndicalist? He's a... Richard Wolff is an anarcho-syndicalist. When he gets rich, yeah, I know. You're right. I'm definitely not at that point already. Neoliberalism is socially liberal but fiscally conservative? Yes. Yes. You missed one. Warren Democrats. Pretty much USA. Warren Democrats wouldn't be there, dude. Pretty much USA would be a socialist state if the New Deal Band-Aid was not applied after the Great Depression. I don't know about that either. I think we'd be a fascist state if the New Deal Band-Aid was not applied after it. Chat Matt, because I'm right. You can disagree with the economic positions of neoliberalism while acknowledging that you align with them socially. It doesn't surprise me that the kind of nuance will be lost in Hasan's chat. Stay mad. Brother man, I think you are lost here. Like neoliberalism and social democrats aligning on the same social scale is functionally meaningless when you think about the overwhelming majority of, I mean, I don't even know what the fuck. Social democrats and neoliberals, depending on what you're comparing them to, could align on a lot of issues. So they're both pro-capitalist, for example, right? And that's a huge distinction that they would have with democratic socialists. But in the short term, democratic socialists and social democrats, or socialists and social democrats in a country like America, are infinitely closer to one another than neoliberals and social democrats. Just because they're on the same side socially does not mean anything. You're just looking for ways to build allyship over matters that pertain exclusively to identity while avoiding the classes distinction, which I think is an umbrella to much larger problems. You're saying, I want there to be more rich, gay, black billionaires when the other side, especially even social democrats, are saying there shouldn't be billionaires. If there was an accurate... What?
Gonna fucking annihilate his Charizard.
I'm not dead to crit.
What? What is this? Why did you do this? Why are we watching this? I don't know. Did you annihilate the Charizard, brother? I hope you did. Check logs? No, this dude is... I know this dude, okay? I know all my fucking chatters. He's one of those dudes who came in, probably liked me originally, met me at fucking TwitchCon Berlin and shit, and then in the separation, he was one of the kids that went to the other side, okay? And now fucking hates me because he gets most of his content from the other political streamer on this platform. So now he's like adopted his perspective, which is skewing his own fucking personal experience with his own personal politics in fucking Germany. It's very stupid.
You love your father.
That's
the
it.
devil.
So now he's back here repeating the same dumbass shits, the dumbass things that he fucking hears on the other stream. Thinking I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
The spirit of justice.
That's why he went from neoliberals and social democrats are on the same side to like, oh, they're just on the same side socially. In America, neoliberals and social democrats are not on the same fucking side. They are diametrically opposed to one another. Neoliberals believe in no fucking free healthcare. Social Democrats believe in some form of free healthcare. You and Mike from PA split? No, that's not what I'm talking about. Never said they're on the same side. What is the straw man? Okay, I'm banning you. Fucking straw man Andy. Get the fuck out of here, bitch. There you go. Have fun. Go mauled in your fucking little safe space on the internet. We hear you, we see you, but you don't get shit. The best part of neoliberalism is that whenever an economic downturn happens, it's not at the fault of neoliberalism. No. You're focusing too much on the economic spectrum. Neoliberalism and social democracy are pretty close on social positions. Yeah, that wasn't... The neoliberal and social democratic party in Germany are literally aligned 90% on socialism. What the fuck are you talking about, LMAO? Man, that sure seems like a straw man that I was building up, huh?
I love the system. I can now remove the tinfoil hat.
Bro, this guy is really
by banning him, you endorse the class system? Class system, Andy? First of all, bitch, I banned a partner streamer. Just so you understand that being a fucking partner in my stream does not make you any different than any number of other... partner streamer who used to subscribe to me for a while. So I'm just trying to tell you, show you, the viewer, that just because you're a fucking partner streamer, yeah, bow bow, I'm looking right at you, bitch, doesn't fucking mean that you're going to get to run your mouth and fucking annoy me. Economic forces are much more powerful than aligning on social issues. Absolutely. You can call me a fucking class reductionist till the cows come home. But ultimately, class is still the easiest way to describe my worldview is I talk about slavery and white supremacy quite frequently on this channel. I think that anyone who says I'm a class reductionist is probably acting in bad faith to make that argument, considering the fact that I've been advocating for these things before those people were even interested in politics. But, bro, this guy's really giving Pokemon a shit name. Not all of us, Hasan, I promise. There's base Pokemon players. Also, Pokemon guys, shut the fuck up. We can't even compare them socially because a lot of social issues have class issues. Stay mad, lip, punk, Putin, walk. Okay, so the best example I can give you is this one. I think the anarchists in the chat simply don't understand that if we didn't have a state, Turkish people wouldn't be able to talk about the American girls that ask you to fuck when you land in the U.S. Okay, that was about sexual repression, you fucking freak. Shut up. Okay. So, the example I will give you is this. A black billionaire, regardless of centuries of slavery and segregation, is still, in our present day, in a more fortunate position than a white homeless person.
You love your father,
that's it.
the devil.
That's my worldview.
3 months.
Okay?
Time.
It's the simplest way I can describe to you my worldview. You're focusing too much on the economic spectrum. Neoliberalism and social democracy are pretty close on social positions. The neoliberal and social democratic party in Germany is aligned 90% on social issues. Yeah. Chat mad. I never said they were on the same side. What is this straw man? Lol W. How did you go from, in a span of 10 minutes, how did you go from they're 90% aligned to I never said they were on the same side. A white homeless person still has white privilege though, right? Yes, but it doesn't fucking mean anything is my point. In that circumstance, class is more significant as a factor than your fucking race. Thank you for coming to my fucking TED Talk. A white homeless person and a black homeless person, the white homeless person, albeit in a really, really shitty position, still has white privilege over the black homeless person, but white privilege in that circumstance does not compare to a black billionaire. Do you understand? If you think that that's class reductionism, then yeah, that's fucking class reductionism. Just keep deluding yourself into thinking that like that there is some magical factor that makes it worse off. I don't know if this contributes to anything, but as a sock them myself, if someone compared me to Margaret Thatcher, I would take that as an insult. Scotland, by the way. Yeah. Yo, the other day I went down the rabbit hole of Turkish nationalist videos on YouTube, and I eventually found a video saying that Lenin was a Turk. Was pretty based, not gonna lie. What? What problems do you have with anarchism? Anarchists? I don't have any problems with anarchists. I mean, I think some of them focus too much on... Some of them don't focus enough on class solidarity or like building a coalition, but that same kind of infighting exists in every fucking faction of the left. But fuck neoliberals. They're not a part of the left. It was my point. They are very much pro-capitalist, and they utilize identity as a means to make themselves seem progressive when they 100% are not fucking progressive. Okay? Raytheon having gay lasers, laser-guided missiles does not change the fact that they're obliterating the gays overseas with their fucking missiles.
You don't love the spirit
Oh
of
man,
justice.
we have more.
You love your
We have
father,
more
the devil.
black trans prison
Please
guards.
read
All
my
of a sudden,
donation and
things are
watch
so
the
much
YouTube
better
video
now.
therein.
Is not
The cats are
necessarily.
getting restless because all
It's not
they hear is
necessarily
meow versus
uplifting
meow.
all
For
the
what it is worth,
the
I
issues
think
that
it
we
will make
have
you
as
chat smile
you know
after
all the
what
issues
I
that black
witnessed
and
as a
gay and
stressful
trans people
14
fucking
hours
experience in
straight.
society.
Meow.
Hey, I really care. I want to make sure that you pee in the correct bathroom, and that's great. Which, by the way, is significant. But also, if you want health care, then fuck yourself if you're poor, okay? Only Caitlyn Jenner gets to have health care, bitch. Because she fucking worked for it, sis. I'm a neoliberal. I align 90% of the way with social values with the social democrats, okay? The communist socialist spectrum of the left's biggest shortcoming is that they can't agree on a single fucking policy and constantly infight and sabotage themselves. Pretty fucking hilarious, but super depressing. Neolibs are socially liberal unless you're a fiscal burden. Insulin independence. I want to say thank you. I was sent here to make a wish team as my type 1 diabetes is ravaging my body on my deathbed. My final wish is to have a poll in the chat about religion. Thank you for setting it up. In the next 30 seconds, you're the best. Fuck you, dude. Okay, I'm doing a fucking religion poll, you son of a bitch.